All right, so first episode of the Bandit Lab, I thought I would cover what's in the toolbox for home mechanic. I've been a mechanic for a lot of years. I've moved to New Zealand recently. I have none of my tools I had back home, so I've had to make do and kind of be more picky about what I actually need in the workshop at my house. And I'm learning as I go what I do need and what I don't need, and it's been good. The way it is, I bought a standard red toolbox, pretty basic. Long-lived chainsaw graphic is pretty key, but pretty basic toolbox. I bought your standard super cheap auto over here, or Canadian Tire, or your Harbor Freight back home, something like that. So in it comes a little basic wrench set. Keep a little plastic on top, doesn't rattle my tools around. But basic wrenches, your basic set of sockets, just a very standard toolkit that you're going to use anyways. I had made sure it had an 8mm Allen key and a 15mm wrench in it, and that's what it's got in there. And we'll get to why I'll use those in a minute here. Inside there as well, I've got a bag of zip ties. You can't have too many zip ties. These are the good ones. The standard 5mm wide, 60-pound zip ties. Pretty straightforward. Semi-solid set of Allen keys. There's a shop here called Torpedo 7. They sell all kinds of stuff. But they also have a pretty decently range of little tools and whatnot in there. But these are pretty standard. I've seen the same set back in Canada. Princess Auto, your Harbor Freights, all of them have the same thing. Just a standard 8mm Allen key. It goes from 1.5 all the way to 10. And you're going to use those on a pretty regular basis. But that allows you to adjust your stems, your bars, your brake angles, take cranks on and off, remove derailleurs, remove pinch your cables and derailleurs. Pretty much most things you're going to need are going to be an Allen key. Especially on a Shimano product. With SRAM products, you're going to see a little bit more of Torx things. Torx is a bit different fitting. Instead of your 6mm, your hex-sided, 6-sided Allen key, it's like a little star of sorts. Also in the toolbox, just a set of bullnose pliers. I have a little mini torque, 5 Newton meter torque wrench that does a 4mm Allen key, which is what you're going to use for your seat collars, some stems. Torque is pretty critical in this day and age with thin wall aluminums and carbon fibers being used. That's a pretty useful tool to have. You don't over torque anything. Snap a bolt, crush a carbon handlebar, things like that. It's a Leatherman inside of there. Pretty standard one. Just has your pliers. Those pliers for fishing and grabbing things and bending bits and bobs. It's also got a nice knife on the one end, so you can cut things with it and use it. I use it mostly to cut zip ties off. I can't handle a zip tie not having a flush head to it. Drives me insane. Inside of that, I'm going to have a roll of tubeless rim tape. This is for a 30mm wide rim. And I use this stuff here from Repco, which is like a Princess Auto or Harbor Freight. It's just like a 50mm wide, 40mm wide maybe, PTFE electrical tape that I use for my plus bikes with really wide rims. I find it holds air really well. I do 2 wraps of it. It's lasted me years. How long I've worked on this, actually been fantastic. A pair of scissors. Always got a pair of those in there. Use those for cutting bar tape, cutting 3M frame protector tapes. Just nice to have in the box. Electrical tape of narrower width. I'm going to use that for wrapping the end of bar wraps. I use it a lot for shimming things. If I need to mount a light to something I need a little more tension, a little more thickness out of, I'll wrap this around a couple times. Allows the mount to bite on there better, more grip to it. And then I'm going to have just some bits and bobs. Some Loctite 243, just your standard. Here's a red bottle, but it's the standard blue thread locker you're going to see in most applications you need it for. In there, I have a multi-tool in there. I use this for a lot of little bits. It has to have a chamber. I haven't bought a chain breaker yet. This one's been more than enough I've needed so far. Been working well for up to 11-speed drivetrains. This has a Phillips on it, your standard Allen keys. I mostly use it for the Torx T25 on this end. I use that for removing rotor bolts and whatnot, things like that. And then on a SRAM derailleur, some of their cable pinch bolts are going to be done with this little doodad. Even some of their bar clamps for their brake levers and reverb C-posts are done with this size of Torx key, Torx key, Torx, Torx. Outside of that, I just got a few little bits and bobs in here. I got some tubeless valve stems I've just had kind of in the collection. You end up with them every now and again. You buy one, you lose one, you find it again. It just comes and goes. You can't. They're nice to have in the box in case you when that's all bunged up. I did end up buying myself a Park Tool VC1. It's kind of a cool little gadget to have in the toolbox. One of the very few like bike-specific tools that I have. This is one here. It just makes life easier. It allows you just to take your valve core out of your tubeless valve, of a Presta valve, and the other end of it, this end, will take the valve cores out of a Schrader valve tube or a Schrader car valve or whatever. You can use this. It's just easier, but you can also use, obviously people use pliers. If people use all kinds of stuff just to get that valve core out. It's just a valve core. So if you need to, it's all plugged up from tubeless sealant. If you can't seat your tires, they're not going up, they're not doing the job for you. You can pop this thing out. It just allows more airflow directly into the tire to pop that tubeless tire up into its place really well. You can either use a pump on this, or you can use an air gun, like a blower gun, a compressor, straight in the pipe, blows the thing up there in no time. Makes it a little bit easier, a little faster for you. What else is in there? Yeah, this. I've got a healthy tool. Got your 12 core tool. Leatherman. 8mm box end, open end box end wrench. Your standard wrench. Nothing too flashy. This is again a super cheap auto one, pretty basic. But is the key you're gonna need if you're gonna change a brake line or take a lever off a hose or whatever. It's the fittings on pretty much every hydraulic disc brake. Lever body is 8mm, so that'll unthread. I'll show you that in a minute as well. And then I have a thing of fiber grip in there for carbon fiber seat post and tubes and bar clamps. And again, it's carbon. You don't use a grease. Use a friction paste. So we've got in here. I always keep some spare chain links. This is, what is this one here? This is going to be a SRAM. I think this is actually an Eagle chain ring, an Eagle XX1 Eagle chain, 12-speed chain, which I don't actually need. None of the bikes I have fit it. I often have some 10-speed or 11-speed links in the box just in case. Matchmaker clamp, these little things from SRAM. If you ever have a SRAM bike you bought OEM, so you bought off the shop floor, it has a SRAM brake and a SRAM shifter. Often the shifter and brake are actually mounted together on one clamp. This is the clamp you need to mount your shifter on its own in case you go to a non-SRAM brake. If you go to like a Shimano brake or Formula or whatever, and you're not using one of their matchmaker systems, this is what you'll need to do that. I just have it in the box. Again, as you'll do more bike maintenance at home and work on things, you're going to end up with spares and leftover bits. I'm a bit of a pack rat. I can never throw anything away because you just never know. You never know what you're going to need out of there. You never know what's going on inside the workshop. You never know what you're going to need. A little bit of a two-part epoxy resin, two-part epoxy adhesive, just in case you break something that you can't fix. You need to fix right then. You need a part, whatever. I rarely ever use this. Usually, if you broke something you need to repair that way, it's too broken to ride with some epoxy on it, but you never know. Some smaller zip ties, because they're smaller, they fit in more things. Sometimes you can only sometimes the bosses on frames are only so wide, so you can't fit the zip tie in there. That's pretty handy, I find, from time to time. Got some old brake pads in there. Just, again, I can't throw anything away. They're not super worn. A bleed or a pad spreader bleed block. Sometimes if you take your wheel out to travel somewhere, you got to pop one of these things in the brake, just in case you hit the lever without the rotor in there. It'll push your pads together, and then you got to pry them apart and probably damage the pad. This pops in like a fake rotor, essentially, and that will help you save that, right? So you don't have to come to see me at a race pit in the morning or at the shop or whatever. It's pretty handy to have one of those in the box at all times. Man, these little toolboxes, man, they can fit a lot of stuff in there to do a lot of basic tools. There's still more tools I want to add to it. I would rather have a real torque set instead of this little multi-tool one. I'm probably going to add a Park Tool AWS, which is their like three-way tool system, like a Y shape, I guess. Looks like that, kind of. So one size, other size, third size, and you kind of like flick it around. And those are really handy, I find. Some mechanics, again, hate them. I'm a pretty big fan of them. Just the way it is. Yeah, and really the toolbox over time just accumulates. It's just a bit of an empire of dirt. I've got some cleat bolts in here from a Shimano cleat. They sit flush. They're a very weird setup. They're hard to find sometimes. I've got an Eagle Master Link, you know, 12 speed, the new titanium ones that are coated all cool with probably a flame treatment of some sort. Pedal washer in there. You never need one of those in case someone loses their pedal washer, or they fit elsewhere. You always find a use for them somewhere. Yeah, I mean, this little doodad's pretty handy. This is a external bearing bottom bracket tool adapter. So most external bearing bottom brackets use a standard tool size, which I don't actually have the tool for right now. But when the new 1000 series Shimano came out, so your Dura-Race R9000, your Ultegra 6800, your XT M8000, SLX M7000 kit, their BBs use a smaller diameter, same interface, just smaller. So it makes pretty much all the tools you've ever had relevant out of the gate. So they gave us these little adapters. I found this actually in my suitcase when I got over here. I don't know how that got there, but it just did. But that's what it is. So it allows you, this goes on your BB, and then your standard tool would go on top of that. Most shops now just have old tool and a new tool, but it is what it is. Press-to valve caps, I never put them back on again. Customers always want them, and I always forget about them. It's my biggest failure as a mechanic most of the time, is I just forget that little detail. But it doesn't do anything. It keeps the dust out of it, I guess. It just is there. But I always have one in the box in case I forget one somewhere, which is probably forgotten the last time around. It's always hard to keep track of them. But yeah, I mean, with all of these tools, I worked at a couple races. You know, I've done most things with it. I can do brake pad changes. I can do shift cable changes. I can do chainring changes. I can do, I have a spoke key somewhere in there where that's gone, but I can do wheel truing with that thing, you know, for most size of wheels. You know, honestly, 9 times out of 10, most of what your bike needs is not a super involved process. The key that you're paying for at a big workshop or a race like that is that knowledge on what has to go on, and repeatability and consistency between the users and what they're going to get out of the bicycle. So when I'm putting it back in the stand, I sense this problem, that problem, you know, I can help that, and I know where to go with it. This toolbox here, definitely missing some major tools. I really need a derailleur hanger, alignment gauge. The Park Tool DAG is my kind of go-to for that. I just don't have one on my personal kit. I tend to borrow that one from the shop when I'm at a race, or another mechanic I work with has one. So those sorts of things are very critical, but I feel like a lot of people, when they buy a bike, get really, really over the top and really into it, and they watch Pink Bike, and Pink Bike always has, like, what's in the pits for World Cup events and whatnot, and, like, there's just too much. There's too much stuff going on that, you know, you don't need for majority of the time. You need some good wrenches, you need a good set of Allen keys, good set of Torx keys. A torque wrench is really key. I don't really have one. It's just in my van currently. But, you know, those things are really helpful for majority of the work you're going to do. And most of the time, the work you're going to do at home is going to be new chains. It's going to be a shift cable. It's going to be some shift casing or housing, and a brake bleed. Brake bleeding is a whole other ballpark. The key I wanted to stress is that for most people, your home toolbox and toolkit doesn't need to be super advanced. And don't be, like, overwhelmed by those sorts of things. So, yeah, that's what I got for you. It's my first video on YouTube. I just would like everyone to put in the comments if you have any questions about it, clarity, anything. Add your own, what's in your toolbox. I'm always curious. I'm always very interested in what people have in their toolboxes in terms of, like, weird little tools, or, like, you know, what kind of spare parts they have in there from over the years. And you see all kinds of crazy stuff from other mechanics boxes from, you know, years in racing and at events and whatnot. So I think it's super, super cool to see those kind of little things, and I look forward to hearing about that. If you like what's going on, next episode we're gonna do, you know, use this toolbox to do a lot of basic maintenance. I'm gonna do a standard, you know, what I'd probably charge $100 some at work to do, like a proper service with new shift cables and housings and a wheel check or things like that. And we'll go through those, but what you tend to get for that kind of dollar wise and setup that way, and the tools you're going to use for it. If you want those things, let me know in the comments. Subscribe for the next episode. Yeah, thanks.